If RV repairs ever feel like they come out of nowhere, it's usually because a tiny problem was quietly getting worse. Today we're covering 5 small issues: roof sealant, slow plumbing leaks, aging tires, slide-out seals, and power connections that can turn into big, expensive repairs if you ignore the early warning signs. Number 1. Roof and seam sealant. Most big RV repair bills start with a small amount of water in the wrong place. On a lot of rigs, the roof is a rubber sheet, EPDM or TPO, or fiberglass, with seams, vents, skylights, antennas, ladder mounts, solar mounts, and edge trim all punched through it. Every one of those cutouts depends on sealant and caulk staying flexible and stuck down. The catch is that sealant doesn't fail all at once. It starts with hairline cracks, a little shrinkage, or a corner that lifts and lets water creep under. Wind-driven rain can push water sideways, and while you're rolling down the highway, the whole roof is flexing. If the sealant is already dry or cracked, that movement turns a tiny gap into a leak path. The early signs are easy to miss: a faint stain near a ceiling corner, a little ripple in wallpaper, a soft spot you only feel when you press gently, or a musty smell that comes and goes after rain. A lot of people only look for obvious dripping, but water doesn't always drip right away. It can wick into wood, insulation, and wall layers and spread out. That's how a small roof crack turns into delamination, the outer wall layer separating, rotten roof decking, swollen cabinets, and mold inside hidden cavities. Once water gets into framing and insulation, fixing it usually means opening walls or the roof, drying everything properly, replacing damaged wood, and then resealing the structure. That is where costs climb fast. What keeps this small is routine inspection. You're looking at all roof penetrations and the seams along the front and rear caps, plus the corners where roof meets sidewalls.
Sealant should look like one continuous, flexible bead. If you see gaps, brittleness, lifting edges, or places where the bead has pulled away, that's your early warning. Window and marker light caulk matters too, because water can enter at a sidewall opening and show up somewhere completely different. It's also worth knowing that the wrong product can make the problem worse. A lot of generic silicone doesn't bond well long-term on RV roof materials, and it can make future repairs harder because many RV sealants won't stick to silicone residue. The goal is simple. Use a sealant made for your roof and trim materials and keep the bead intact. If you ever find a spongy area, repeated stains, or signs of wall bubbling, that's the point where a quick reseal might not be enough, and it makes sense to get a shop involved. Because you want the wet material found and dried before it turns into structural rot. Water from the roof is the one everyone talks about, but water doesn't only come from the sky, and the next problem is even sneakier because it starts inside the RV. Number 2. Slow plumbing leaks. RV plumbing is a mix of plastic fittings, flexible lines, clamps, and fixtures that get shaken for thousands of miles. A drip that would be annoying in a house can be destructive in an RV because the cavities are small and airflow is limited. The classic small problem here is a tiny leak under a sink, behind the toilet, at the shower mixer, at the water heater connections, or at the city water inlet/check valve. Sometimes you won't see it dripping. You'll just notice the water pump doing quick on-off cycles when nobody is using water. Or you'll notice dampness in a storage bay that never used to feel humid. That pump cycling matters because it tells you pressure is bleeding off somewhere. Another early clue is swelling wood around a cabinet base, a floor that starts to feel a little soft near the bathroom, or a smell that reminds you of wet wood or old towels. If it's ignored, the repair isn't just tighten a fitting. Water can sit on the subfloor, soak into particle board, and spread under vinyl flooring or under the shower pan. Over time, that can mean replacing subfloor sections, rebuilding cabinet bases, and dealing with moldy insulation. Plumbing leaks also tend to show up after winter. A tiny freeze crack in a plastic fitting can stay hidden until spring, when you pressurize the system and it starts weeping behind a panel. If you use city water hookups often, there's another angle: high pressure. Many campgrounds have water pressure that's higher than your RV plumbing likes. A pressure regulator is cheap compared to a blown fitting or a split hose, and it also reduces stress on faucets and check valves. Keeping this small is mostly about noticing patterns and doing quick checks. If the pump starts short cycling, don't brush it off as just an RV thing. Open the access panels, feel around fittings for moisture, and check areas that are easy to forget, like the water heater compartment, the outside shower, and the back of the toilet. A paper towel wipe on fittings can reveal a slow seep that your eyes miss. Also, watch the city water inlet area for dampness, because that check valve can leak and send water into a wall. If you keep finding repeat leaks at plastic tees or elbows, upgrading that specific problem spot to a better fitting is usually more reliable than tightening the same connection over and over. Plumbing damage is slow and expensive because it's hidden. But there are also instant damage problems that start small, and tires are at the top of that list. Number 3. Tires that look okay. RV tires can have plenty of tread and still be near the end of their safe life. Time, sunlight, heat, and heavy loads age a tire from the inside out, and an RV often sits for long periods with a lot of weight in one spot.
Small warning signs show up early: tiny sidewall cracks, uneven wear, a tire that keeps losing a few psi, or a vibration that wasn't there before. The reason this becomes a big repair is that a tire failure on a trailer or motorhome is rarely just buy a new tire. A blowout can shred the wheel well liner, tear brake wiring, damage holding tanks, rip off trim, and even punch into the floor edge. On a trailer, it can take out fender skirts and exterior lights. On a motorhome, it can damage steps, wiring looms, and even doors, depending on where it lets go. The expensive part isn't always the tire, it's what the tire does on its way out. Pressure is the most practical place to focus, because underinflation creates heat, and heat is what breaks tires down fast. The tricky part is that RV loads vary a lot. 2 rigs can be the same model and still have very different weights depending on tanks, cargo, and upgrades. If you can, weigh the rig the way you actually travel, then set tire pressure based on the tire maker's load and inflation chart for your tire type. Even if you don't have scale numbers, checking pressure cold before travel and keeping it consistent is a huge step. Also pay attention to age. Tires have a DOT date code on the sidewall that tells you the week and year they were made, and many RV owners replace tires based on age even if tread looks fine, because rubber aging is real. Valve stems are another small detail that becomes a big problem. Old rubber stems can crack, and even a slow leak can turn into a heat problem on the highway. Metal stems rated for the right pressure are common on heavier rigs. If you want a simple upgrade that helps you catch issues early, a tire pressure monitoring system, TPMS, can alert you to a pressure drop or abnormal temperature trend before a tire destroys the side of your RV. Finally, don't ignore odd wear patterns. Cupping or one edge wear can point to alignment or suspension issues,
And if those aren't addressed, you're not just chewing through tires, you're stressing axles, bearings, and brakes. Tires are where weight meets the road, and weight also affects slide-outs. Because if the coach is twisted or not supported right, slide mechanisms feel it. Number 4. Slide-out seals and alignment. A slide-out is basically a moving wall with a roof and floor edge, and it depends on seals, rails, rollers, and motors staying aligned. The small problems here usually sound like nothing at first: a light squeak, a little shudder as the slide moves, a seal that looks dry, or a small tear in a wiper seal. Dirt and grit get into the tracks, seals drag, the mechanism works harder, and that extra strain adds up. At the same time, a dried out or damaged seal can let water in at the top corners or along the slide roof edge. That water can run down inside the wall and show up as a soft spot at the slide floor, which is one of the most expensive places to rebuild because it involves structural edges and often the slide box itself. The other big repair path is mechanical. If a slide is binding because the coach is slightly twisted, or because a track is dirty, or because a roller is worn, the system can get out of sync. Some designs have motors or gear packs that can be damaged by repeated high load. Others use cables or racks that can jump or wear unevenly if one side is working harder than the other. People sometimes keep holding the switch to power through a sticky spot, but that is how a small alignment issue becomes a stripped gear, bent rail, broken shear pin, or damaged mounting points. Keeping this small is mostly about watching the slide travel and paying attention to the seals. The slide should move smoothly and sound consistent. If it suddenly gets louder, jerky, or uneven, that's a message.
Look at the wiper seals and bulb seals, the main foam/rubber seal that compresses when closed. They should be intact, not torn, and not folded the wrong way. Also, check for daylight where there shouldn't be any, and for water tracks or staining at the inner corners. Keeping the slide roof area clean matters too, because leaves and grit sitting on top can get pulled inside when you retract. For lubrication and seal treatment, follow the slide manufacturer's guidance, because some products attract dirt or can harm rubber over time. If you're not sure, cleaning with mild soap and water and keeping tracks free of debris is a safe baseline. And if a slide starts binding, stopping early and getting it checked is cheaper than replacing parts after you've forced it. Slides are a mix of weather sealing and mechanical load, and the last problem ties both of those themes together: small connection issues that ripple through multiple systems. Number 5, power connections and batteries. RV electrical problems often start with something boring: corrosion on a battery terminal, a loose ground, a tired converter/charger, or a shore power plug that isn't making solid contact. Because an RV has both 12-volt DC for lights, fans, and control boards, and 120-volt AC for outlets and big appliances, a small issue on one side can show up as confusing symptoms on the other. You might notice lights dimming when the water pump runs, the fridge control panel acting weird, the furnace blower sounding slow, or the slide moving weaker than usual. Those are often low-voltage clues, and low voltage is hard on electronics. Control boards and motors draw more current when voltage is low, which creates more heat, and heat shortens component life. Battery maintenance is one of the easiest places to prevent this chain reaction. Corrosion adds resistance, and resistance creates heat and voltage drop. So clean, tight terminals matter.
If you have flooded lead-acid batteries, water level matters too. Running them low on water damages the plates and reduces capacity. If you have AGM or lithium batteries, the details are different, but the general rule stays the same. Keep connections clean
and make sure the charging system is actually charging the way it should. Shore power connections are another area where a small issue turns expensive. If the plug blades are worn, if the pedestal outlet is loose, or if the RV inlet has a weak connection, it can heat up under load. Early signs are things like a plug that feels unusually warm, discoloration on the blades, a soft or warped-looking plug body, or intermittent power when the cord is bumped. If you see any of that, that's not something to ignore, because the repair can escalate from a simple plug replacement to replacing the RV inlet, parts of the cord, or even components inside the power distribution system. For safety, if anything shows heat damage or you smell hot plastic, stop using that connection and have it checked by a qualified person. A surge protector or an electrical management system, EMS, also helps because it can protect against low voltage, high voltage, and wiring faults at the campground pedestal. It's not flashy, but it can save air conditioner boards, microwave electronics, and chargers. Also, pay attention during storage. Many RVs have small parasitic draws from detectors, stereo memory, and control boards. If you park for weeks without charging, the battery can drift low, and sitting discharged shortens battery life. Using the battery disconnect when appropriate, or keeping the battery on a proper maintainer keeps the system healthy. A quick look at the 12-volt fuse panel for loose fuses or heat marks can also catch trouble early, and the same goes for the main grounds, where the battery negative bonds to the chassis. Electrical problems feel intimidating because they touch so many systems, but the early warnings are usually simple. Heat where there shouldn't be heat, corrosion where there should be clean metal, and voltage symptoms that keep repeating. If you notice heat at a plug or repeating low-voltage glitches, it's worth checking connections and charging voltage before you start swapping parts.